data plays a crucial role in the success of both schools and children book publishing, as it allows us for the creation and targeting an effective educational material and identification of popular, successful books titles. To know more about this topic, we'll be having a session coming through. The name of the session is Importance of Data in School and Children Book Publishing, powered by Nielsen Book Scan Data. I would now request a video. Now I would request Mr. Vikram Mathur, Executive Director, Nielsen Book Data, to please come on the stage.
Thank you so much. I think from the Nielsen side, this was well thought session. And we agreed to do this session because the importance of the data around the children, and that is what the idea behind to that. And we have been deliberating on this session on the topic about it, that should be what the topic should be, because the terminology being used is varied from child to kids, but ultimately the objective of our session is one single thing, which is the reading of the books. And books can be read in the form of physical format or audio format or the digital format. But we want to evaluate and see the opportunities and the challenges that publisher thinks about in this market, because it's a very interesting market. And then I think, which is such a large populated country, where we have about 260 million students going to the schools, which is about 26 crore of the students, which is a huge amount of population, probably at a country size of in the European market. It plays a vital role in the global economy when we talk about, from the government perspective, about the young population and the skill development and the language development of this market. We thought this is a very important session to be, and the topic to be giving the experience and the learning curve for the people who are attending. And those who are not been able to attend and will attend from the digital medium, it's a very good learning for them. And that is why I have thought of curating this session and calling the panelists. And I thought it's very important because one by one, when I call my panelists, you will understand the rationale behind of having this kind of session. So to begin with, I would like to call my first panelist, and I want to clap for that, Ms. Monica. Ms. Malhotra Kandhari is the Managing Director of MBD Group. As a second-generation entrepreneur, she started working at the age of 16, and today she is heading one of India's leading educational company, a strong believer in edtech innovation, and I'm experienced myself because a couple of days I was in her office and I saw the kind of motivation she throws on publishing world, not only India, but also willing to serve international market. A kind of literary campaigner, Ms. Malhotra has inherited the business acumen from her father, Shri Ashok Kumar Malhotra, the visionary founder of MBD Group, and she is taking MBD Group to greater heights of success and positive commitment. Ms. Kandhari is a key member of CII, co-chair publishing at FICCI, vice president of FIP, member of Senate of Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. She has also received numerous awards, and I can go on speaking about her. Times Power of Icon 2021, Awards of Contribution to Education. The another one, the 10 most influential education leader in 2018, awarded by the Knowledge of Review magazine. With that, I welcome Monica onto the taste. My second panelist is the Avinash. Avinash, and why I call Avinash, because the book's been read by the students or by the children. One is the compulsory reading, which is the school. The other one is for the competitive reason, because our kids are applying for various colleges, for the higher student studies, and that is what Avinash is behind. He's an alumnus of G.V. Pant University and the Management Development Institute, Gurgaon. Avinash is enthusiastic, leads Disha Publication as its founder, director, cum CEO. Apart from being the leading business strategist in the company, he oversees Disha Digital Division and the other things. With over 15 years of experience as a study skill habit coach of students, he firmly believes that any child can be a topper. He has interviewed hundreds of toppers who have cracked different competitive exams and which led him deeply understand the topper mindset. Through his books, podcasts, and online programs, he endeavored to impart the right learning strategies, techniques, and mindset to students to convert their potential into performance. He has authored several bestseller books, to name few: Study Hacks, the Secret of UPSC Toppers. With that, I call upon my second panelist, Avinash. My third panelist is the managing director of Nielsen BookData, and he plays a vital role in the global industry. And that is why he's there as he agreed to be part of the panelists, because he can then bring the lot of insights on what he thinks internationally and benchmark from India to global. With that, he is the market leader, metadata supply, discovery, sales measurement, consumer research, and commerce solution for the book industry internationally. The company is also responsible for ISBN and SAN agency for the UK and Ireland. Andre background is in book retail and risk market research. Since joining Nielsen BookData, he has worked on numerous projects ranging from analyzing the Chinese book market to the expansion of the digital market. He has been influential in the launch of new Nielsen book scan markets, including Brazil, Mexico, and India, and is currently leading expansion efforts globally. In his role as MD, Andre has worked with numerous industry associations and bodies to develop standard best practices which are used internationally. With that, I welcome Andre. And the fourth panelist is my friend Himanshu. Called Himanshu because of the reason is, while we read compulsory and for various books for the competitive nature, it is also important for the vocabulary, for the development of the skill, development of the mindset, the leisure reading. That is very important for the industry, for the development of the nation. With that, I want to call upon Himanshu. Himanshu, almost 3 decades of work experience in the field of education, publishing, and travel services with experience in operations, sales, marketing, and outreach. He extensively worked around the children's book promotion domain in India and APAC regions. Having worked on many public and private educational projects for setting up libraries for underserved children in India, he expertise including strategic partnership, one source, multi-use program implementation, and many more. One of the key team associates he to help set up Scholastic in India. With an association of more than a decade with the company, currently leading the team at Pratham Books as the capacity of CEO. With that, I welcome Himanshu. I want to go first with Monica, because when we did an India book market report in the collaboration with FIP, we saw that it's a very sizable market of the school. Roughly about 3/4 of the publishing stays at the school side. How do you see that as one of the key leader in the market, and what is the responsibility you feel as a school publisher, one of the leading publisher in the school market?
First of all, thank you for the generous introduction. Um, yes, it's a huge market. As you said, that it's some European countries put together. That's the population, student population we have in the schools. If I look at the segmentation, that there are a lot of students who are going to government schools also. There's a large size of that population, student population going to government schools. But because the numbers are so high, we all publishers have a market to attend to. Whether they're regional plays or whether they're national plays, we all have a role to play. See, in today's time, when we are talking about the national education policy, more so our role has to increase multifold. We are talking about 21st century skills to be addressed. We are talking about Bloom's taxonomy. We are talking about creative thinking, the sustainable development goals. We are talking about many things through the the education policy. And we as publishers, I think our core responsibility is to rework our content, whether it's digital or whether it's physical, in a way that we achieve those learning outcomes. And we're not going to achieve it tomorrow, but we have to step up ourselves. Since we all have seen that in all these years where publishers have always come forward at the time of need, depending upon what is required by the end customer. We have customized our content to suit the needs of the child. Of course, there are government books which are given free of cost to students, but then we don't see government books as a competition because they are made from a mindset that it can suit lots of students. But today is a call where we have to take customization into mind. Each child, when we look at what are the learning gaps, more so after COVID, there are a lot of learning gaps. What are the learning gaps of each child? How the child is going to learn, what kind of learner is that child, or the teacher has a class of 40 students. How do you think a teacher is going to manage that classroom? So there are a lot of trainings which have to be imparted. So we as publishers, we not only create content, we not only customize the content, we also go ahead and impart trainings to the teachers so that they adopt newer technologies and newer methodologies for teaching. And also we go as far as giving the softwares, requisite softwares and materials to help the children, to help the teacher fraternity to impart that knowledge in a way that we achieve those learning outcomes which we are looking at. It's a humongous task in front of us. Cannot be achieved in a day or two. The entire ecosystem has to work towards it. Government has done their bit by laying down what is the expectation from all of us, as teachers, as principals, as students, as publishers. So we all have to do our bit, and we have maximum responsibility on our shoulders. Right? Because each of us, we are working in a particular area or in few schools. We have our own data, we have our own understanding of how students behave, how teachers behave. And we have to then see that how we can address through our content, through our training. So there's a lot which we have to bring on the table. So this, I think the responsibility is humongous and we have to take it really very seriously. Now, not just maneuvering, doctoring the content or just changing a bit and giving to the students because we have to sell in the next session. I think there's a lot of responsibility is from the authors to the publishers and to the schools and the teachers to understand that if we are talking about sustainable development goals, whether they're important, they have to talk to the parents also. We are not understanding that, okay, we have laid down, and education policy has laid down certain things which we have to achieve. How important are they for the students? So everything, it trickles down, and then it trickles down from top, like government, then us, then teachers, then parents, and students. So it's a lot of responsibility on us, I would say.
Thank you. I think you rightly pointed out about the importance of the publisher towards the area of development of customization of the books, plus the skill set development of the teacher side. With that, I want to come to Avinash. We have seen in our database that a lot of competitive examination books are also appearing in the bestseller charts. They are doing very well. What do you believe is a reason behind or the rationale behind of them hitting the bestseller charts in the country?
So first of all, thanks for giving me this opportunity. I would like to especially thank Nielsen for providing data for this so-called non-glamorous publishing industry, because I strongly feel that data decides the direction, and success, be it publishing or any other business, is not about running fast, it is about running in the right direction. Now specifically coming to your question, what I feel is that this internet revolution has democratized everything. It has democratized flow of information. It has democratized the distribution channel. Flow of information to the extent that if the student is searching for any kind of book, he can read the reviews, he can read the ranks, he has the facility to look inside. So, this entire process has made the process of selecting the book extremely easy. This coupled with the democratization of the distribution channel, all the inefficiencies of the, all the inefficiencies of the obsolete distribution channels have gone away. Today, the student can get the book at the click of the mouse without running here and there, and that too at the best possible discount. So I feel that the strongest or the biggest driver behind this ever-increasing demand is this internet revolution. And this also coupled with a lot of other things because, ever-rising Indian middle class, wherein everybody knows that education is the only passport to success or to make it big in life, increasing competitiveness, which requires extra knowledge or extra content, uh, uh, the increasing number of seats, be it IITs, the increasing number of seats, be it in IITs, the increasing number of vacancies in government sector, all these things combined are increasing and the demand is growing exponentially. So according to me, that's the basic thing. But this entire thing which is driving, one thing which is driving this entire revolution is the data.
Brilliant. With that, I think I'm come to Himanshu before I go to Andre. Himanshu, two of the panelists have talked about from the school perspective, from the data perspective, from the competitive examination perspective, because students have to read those books to pass on the basic qualification and also to upgrade themselves to the global job situation. They have to appear for the various examinations to read more engineering, medical colleges, and that's why the competitive books are about. When I come to you, I want to understand from you that we have noticed that in the international market, the children books are doing well. Do you think in India, as a publisher, do you think children publishers are also doing well to cater the need of the children? If not, what should be done, and if it is there, what we are doing for them?
Thank you for giving the opportunity. Am I audible? Yes. All right. So I think it's a very it's such a question that's I'll speak from my heart. I don't think with the kind of demographic stats we have in our country, and if I have to speak that, we live in a country with about 350 million children with 0 to 15 years of age group, right? With that, I think what is getting produced in India is far more less than what is required. And if you also look at the kind of availability, affordability bracket we're talking about, it is also, again, it's very, very, I would say, more towards the top of the pyramid, which gets collected and which gets disseminated. So I think that way there is a lot that publishers would have to do in India. There is not much enough content which gets produced. Unfortunately, the children's literature part, which is the joyful reading part, I would say it's not very well attended. It's not that people have not been doing great work, but I think, again, being, just to reiterate, our numbers are so huge, our the diversity in a country is so huge. So I think we have to, when you look at the kind of content for children which is getting produced in the languages is so low. It is all concentrated towards English. So I think there are all these factors are a combination that we have to really look at, and there is a need for more and more organizations, institutions to come up and start doing and building more good quality children's literature for it to be consumed. I would, that's the way I would look at it.
Himanshu, I have another question. What you said it is that on the reading habits, in India has been noticed that reading habits are largely shaped by their parents. The books, decision of making purchases are largely being decided by their parents, what book their children will read. What approach could publishers use to promote reading habits among school children?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that children are not given the agency to buy something of their own. We as elders, parents, guardians, we always boast and claim our gray hairs that, read this, I have read it, you must follow this because I have followed it. But I think I would say that the situation is very tricky. while you say that parents are the promoters of the reading, or so to say, the key stakeholders, I would agree to it, but again, I would bifurcate. I'm again going back to the India perspective, where you see that the parent being a major stakeholder is only in the metros and upmarkets and two-tier cities. It's not below. Given the COVID situation, like what Monica was referring to, I think the dynamics have completely changed on ground. The parent of the 70% of the India has suddenly become a major stakeholder. And also you have to mind it that we live in a country with first generation learners, right? So it's not that parent himself or herself is well read. So I think given the situation, I would say that from a strategy point, publishers need to focus more towards the educator and the parent fraternity for it to be. And also I would say to the parents that you have to learn to give more agency to the child. You know, I don't think we trust our children. We don't give them 500 rupees. I mean, I can go back because like, Vikrant said, I remember my old scholastic days where we used to ask children when they used to visit the book fair for browsing, they were to write a wish list. And when the child writes 10 books as a wish list, would go back home, ask the mom and dad for about 1,000 rupees, and in the morning would come back to the book fair and buy the Pokemons and the Wimpy Kids and the Geronimo Stiltons, while the wish list said space, technology, reading, learning, and parents were very satisfied. So I think we have to see, we don't have a very, I would say, we have a non-reader situation. For us to improve the situation, we have to use these mediums characters to build the reading habit for them to be the future buyers. I think that, but it has to start from the parents, I would say, and the educators' side as a strategy which the publishers should be focusing on.
Wonderful. I think to lay the foundation, I think we heard that from the school perspective, from the competition, also from the leisure reading. I want to go to Andre and understand that since he has listened about the Indian perspective of the publishers, that how the children readings are, how do you see that structure of the global children market in the global situation? How you benchmark that?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, can you hear me? Thanks, Ayaz. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. I am no educational expert, and the global educational market, or sort of the global, children's book market, is obviously hugely varied market by market. As we also discussed, I think you can split it in between educational content, or I'd even say compulsory educational content, versus non-compulsory educational content. And I think that's a really important distinction. We've talked a little bit about reading for leisure, and I'd say one of the biggest differences in between markets is the amount of books that are bought and read by children purely for leisure. That doesn't mean that it's not educational content, nor that it is not educational. So I think that is probably one of the biggest differences. Actually, globally, we have seen that the children's book market has really performed strongly, pre-pandemic, and also post, and also during pandemic. Something that has also been said here is the internet revolution has really changed how children are educated, and then, COVID forced everybody to sort of leap forward 10 years in home education and into digital media or a hybrid educational environment. But that also had a converse effect where parents and also children, I think, really suffered from screen fatigue. And the physical book's ability to help a child to learn and remember has now been repeatedly recognized in research. Anyone who's a parent will know it anecdotally, and not only for retention, but also for relaxation. So I'd say there's been a huge shift, started before the pandemic, but then really the pandemic accelerated it all around the world. India specifically, as others here know much better than me, is a much more diverse and complex and large market than even whole other regions. But I always find it interesting that fundamentally the problems or the main challenges around the world are the same, because we are trying to educate children and we are trying to turn them into lifelong readers and also readers for leisure. So even though the markets are vastly different, and in some cases further along their sort of developmental trajectory of the children's market, their problems are the same. I hope that answers the question, but it's a big question.
Yeah. No, it does answer some of it, but I'll come back to you again. But I want to go back to Monica, is that you talked about the NAP, and I think with the implementation of the new educational policy and the recent online classes trend have started because of the COVID situation, the demand of school students have significantly altered because of this nature. Do you concur of this assertion, and also what are your thoughts on it? As a publisher, what is you think, and as an industry, what you think the future of this lies?
Yeah, sure. Before I address this question, the questions which you asked, both of them, very important questions. That we are not looking at our children, we're looking at to develop our own colons as parents. We're not looking them as individuals. So that's why we're not giving them those agencies in terms of thought process that they can have their own thinking. So we are not letting them come out with what they want out of their lives. Then ultimately we've done good education, we've done good parenting, we've done everything good parenting from our perspective. But our children are confident enough tomorrow to fight in the world, to survive in the world, and to do what they want, and do they know their passion. This is what I think any education should aim at, to develop individuals as what they want out of their lives, which all of us put together in an ecosystem should strive to do that. Yes, now coming back to your question that, I was the other day talking, past 10 years or something we've been harping about, there are new digital tools. Teachers have been all along very scared that these digital, the transformations or the interventions are going to make them obsolete. So we were at one time addressing that question. No, this is just a tool. You had a blackboard first, and then you had now you have an interactive board. Now you have digital content at your disposal to use when you want to. Maybe for testing, maybe for pre-testing, maybe to evaluate the learning gaps, maybe to evaluate what kind of learner the child is, maybe to do certain administrative stuff on these platforms. Teachers were more scared of these platforms. This is going to replace me. That was not the case, and I've been harping about it, talking about it to every teacher. But then when COVID arrived, they realized that this has come to the rescue at the time of need. This happens in everyday classroom also. There are certain concepts which are very difficult to draw on the blackboard. They are very difficult to understand. You want to use the 3D or 2D animations for that. You want to use, there's a class of 40 students, and you don't know, and this is the first class you're taking in the first session, what is the pre-learning? How do you benchmark that? How do you group those students into different kinds of learners, auditory or reading or kinesthetic, or what kind of learners they are. So there's a humongous task, and we have limited number of hours. With the courseware we have to do, with the limited number of hours, there's a lot technology can do for them. So, and plus testing, making test papers, which takes a lot of time. Teachers, when they're doing their own desk job, a lot of time is involved in making test papers, checking test papers, and then giving a report card which is qualitative also in nature, not only quantitative. So a lot of things which they now understood that technology can do, they stopped fearing technology, which helped all the publishers, probably I would say, who are into this space or who are going to go into this space, or who were there in the past decade, that the market size has increased. The teachers who do not fear using technology, plus the usage of technology also increased multifold. So that really helped us. Yes, post-COVID, there has been correction. As you said, I think Andre said that there is, that fatigue to be on the screen. So that correction is what? Is hybrid learning. Textbooks are not going to go anywhere. Teachers will be the most prominent and person in the entire ecosystem to impart that knowledge to the student. They will always remain. This is a very effective tool to use depending upon each child, depending upon each subject or each concept. What is the need? Where you are, class B city, class C city, or class A city? What kind of problems you have. You have a good teacher for class, for science, you don't have a good teacher for English. So you use certain lectures also which are developed by publishers to impart that. And now with the education policy, you have certain vocational courses also. You have certain subjects which the schools don't have teachers for. They don't have good teachers for. They can't, maybe in that, that near vicinity, you don't have good teachers. So such contents, they come from, I've seen in places, developed countries like UK and all, where they didn't have teachers on drama. So I saw that. I was studying their school education. So they had these modules and the students were seeing those digital modules and doing their class. So what I'm saying is that it's an effective tool and teachers have understood it, the educators have understood, and even parents to a certain extent have understood. Now, post-COVID, we're talking about hybrid situations where textbook learning is again coming back to the main way of reading, learning, teaching. And we using this as a robust tool, which is technology, whether for ERP or whether for LMS or whether for testing, as I just said, whatever. So I think we as publishers have the responsibility to create physical content, plus also emphasize not less than 1% of the physical content on the digital content also. We have our responsibility to create both. We have all sorts of learners, at least address few. So this is what I think, and we all should invest in it. Collaborate or invest individually. So that's what it is.
Brilliantly. I think the other question that I have before I go to my next panelist is, you talked about the skill and the lack of skill. You also talked about the lack of the skill is thus not limited to country of us, but also in UK. Do you think that industry, as an industry of publishing, which also has the responsibility just not to content creation, but also develop a skill development among the teachers so that our books or are the content which we are creating are being absorbed or being used in both the medium, whether the physical medium or the media medium? So you think the industry also have, or are we doing something on those lines on skill development?
Well, if I talk about just our own company, we train about 300,000 teachers approximately those numbers every year, depending upon what's the need in which area. We've been doing that for many years, that how to adopt newer methodologies, the digital side of the content. We also have addressed the classroom issues, emotional issues. And we also have addressed the mental health issues with the forum which was there before. So depending what the school wants, the school also evaluates their own data. What are their children going through? What is the requirement per teacher? What is the requirement of the teacher in the classroom? So accordingly, those sessions are customized and we impart those trainings. Now when we are coming to today's scenario, we'll be imparting a training how to use the books and technology together in conjunction, which are complementing each other. How to use the LMS, how to use the ERP for administrative purposes so that you utilize your effective time in effective teaching. Today the teachers don't have time. Up till now, I have not seen a teacher first grouping the students according to their competencies. It's like, okay, roll number 1 to this, and then they divide the classroom like that. So is it healthy? Because we don't have the pre-learning, how to test them what kind of learners they are. Then the importance of creating the content, the publishers sometimes don't understand. Through the content, they have to develop the 21st century skills. Through the content, they have to develop the sustainable development goals. So that responsibility, I think we all have to be more aware about. We are, but we all have to be more aware about as publishers. And as teachers, I think that fear is going and we're happy about it. And I think, as the entire ecosystem, training is one thing which each publisher should get involved in their own data set, in their own market. This will really help. This will multifold increase the hands of government also. They are harping about achieving something very big and huge. If we do not participate in it, I do not think so that can be achieved in a given time that we are thinking of. We all publishers have to put together, help and become their hands to roll the implementation plan, what the government has in mind. So that's
With that, I want to go to, again, back to Avini. That uh, Monica had talked about the online versus the physical book and the responsibility of the publisher around both the, and also about the training and the skill development of the teacher. While in the competition side, how do you see that? Because when we look at it from the data perspective, we see that digital is growing very fast when you compare to the physical one. Uh, how do you see that, digital versus physical, in the competitive books? And also, from what are the challenges that you see? My second question would be, is from the content consumption perspective, because the examinations are increasing, the content need to be revised so quickly. How do you see both of these, online versus physical, and the content and consumption?
So as far as the consumption is concerned, there can be different ways that you look at it. There are two, you can broadly categorize competitive examination into two broad categories. One can be examinations which require short-term preparation. Another can be examinations which require deep dive and long-term preparation. Examinations like which are deeply conceptual in nature, like engineering entrance, medical entrance, or probably UPSC entrance examinations. So, pre-COVID and post-COVID, one thing which I have learned, observed, and, closely felt was that when the students did not have any choice, yes, obviously the market moved to online thing, but, since last 1 year when the students are having choices, the market is slowly and slowly moving towards, offline thing. So offline is again coming back. And what I feel is that apart from content, apart from teacher, there are various other dynamics which affect the overall learning of the student, which is the discipline, which is the concentration, which is the body language, which is the teacher feels, teacher को बच्चे की आंख में देख के पता चल जाता है कि उसे समझ में आ रहा है या नहीं आ रहा है. And all these things are very, very important. The ability to ask the doubt as and when required. Many of these things were missing in the online thing. So, the market which we cater as the market for competitive examination, slowly and slowly it is moving towards, it is coming back towards offline, and students feel more comfortable learning the things offline than learning them online. Obviously, yes, online has an advantage, and I'm not saying that it is completely going to go away. Probably something hybrid would emerge. It is still in the process of uthal-puthal. Probably it will get stabilized, and a hybrid model would emerge probably in 2023 or 2024.
We both talk about, Himanshu, about the online. When I come from the ledger book side, the online terminology itself changed, because parent doesn't want their kid to have the gadget for reading purpose, because of the influence of the social media. And when you look at the international market, and I'm not criticizing the Indian children, but I'm saying that when you go to any other markets, kids are holding a book. When you go to the tube, people and the kids are holding the book. When you look at here, the social media and the effect of the internet has impacted a lot, especially during the COVID time. As a children's mission, how do you see that to be tackled, and what do you see in terms of the demand of children print book when the influence of internet and the social media is so high in the country?
So, if you really look back, pre-pandemic, I think the thought processes were that it is, I'm just trying to differentiate between the digital versus the physical. I think the thought processes for before pandemic or even before that was, it is an either or situation. I think what pandemic happened and people suddenly realized it's not either or, it has to be hand in hand, right? Which my friends are saying to be hybrid, right? So I don't see, I completely agree with what Monica said. I think digital or the social side of it complements the print. It's not that children, whether you look at the global markets or you look at the markets here, it's the reading, the buying, the engagement is improving with the children. But having said that, again, the thing is that people feel that, I mean, I've personally felt, and we've been a case as an organization in the Yale University a few years back, where a question was posed that, whether digital is going to cannibalize the print. but like she said, it complements. I think as I speak today, we have little over 100 million readers. And of that, I can happily say that I think 25 to 30 million are the digital readers, are the people who are reading our content digitally, and 50 to 75 million are the print readers. So it's not, I think it's on a growing path. But having said that, I would say that um, it's, it's, a, it's a long run for us to be really kind of creating that space, that social media and all. I think children are just engaging themselves, and like you said from the tube example, it's just that I think the reading has to be embedded right from the formative years for children in our country. हमारा बच्चा रोता है तो हम उसे चॉकलेट देते हैं, उसे खिलौना देते हैं. You know, we try and lure the child with so many things. I don't think reading is embedded. The child doesn't sleep on the lap while listening to a story. दादी नानी कहानियाँ सुनाना आजकल prefer नहीं करते हैं. Or it's good that the child gets hooked to the YouTube and you play the channels. I mean, we have one of the, some of you may have heard, we've tried to engage children using physical and digital formats. I think the child, as a child, needs a new format, a newness every day. So you want to watch a book, you want to read a book, you want to do a read aloud. We had one service called Missed Call Do Kahani Suno. You can dial a toll-free number and listen to a free story. So there are ways that you can engage with the children to increase the uptake of the content. And digital is, technology is for scale. I think we all have to understood it, just that we are slowly accepting it and finding a way out.
Yeah. It's a brilliant said, but I think we still owe a responsibility towards the development of the nation and the kids, because I still believe that social media has been a great influence on the kids, and the balance between that of online versus the physical still being controlled by the parents. And there is some more work, innovation required from the publishing community. I think we have done some good amount of work by, again, going back to the book fair, doing the book fair in these schools. But I think there is some more work to be done, and educational needs to be done, not just to the students, but also to the parents, because many times parents have not read the book in their life. So if they have not read, how they will pass on that to their kids. But having said that, I will come to Monica, because I've seen a data on the Nielsen book scan data, and where we have noticed that the authors probably we are seeing the data from the data side, and you can throw more light. The R.D. Sharma kind of authors, Lakshmi Singh, are being read. How you see the promotion of and readiness of the new authors in the educational space, so that we say that these are the new authors that we are creating and they are ready for the future perspective?
Well, I'll take a little bit of liberty because these were very interesting questions, just a minute or so. While I don't know from the competition study side, but if I'm talking about from the K-12 segment, I think the problem solving has been addressed much better technologically. Because in the class, when I'm sitting and probably I'm trying to ask a question, thinking that it may not be a very intelligent question, very basic, and I feel shy in asking that question and raising my hand in the class. While when we are using technology, there are social groups of the students of your own class who address the same question. You can address the question to the teacher individually also. So, and the teacher in leisure hours can do that. In the classroom, sometimes you can't address all the questions. So the community also helps. The community building becomes very strong when you are using technology. I think it helps. And also when we are talking about whether the child is understanding or not. Yes, it's a little fashionable tool, but now everybody of us is using his proctoring tool to understand from the iris of the child whether the child is understanding attentive in the class or not. Because I do understand teachers can do that best. But in given situation, when we have 40 students in the class, it becomes sometimes challenging, I think. So this technology again comes to help. And the question which was asked on digital reading and physical reading, I think it complements each other. And if, suppose today I have read a book, and there is an animation, and as a child I see an animated story or something, or a movie on it, or any kind of digital content, I'll relate to it. I like to see it because I relate to the story. Or I've seen something online and then I want to read the book. Case in point, it's not a good example, Harry Potter. You see the movie and you see the book sales. So it is quite relatable. I agree to it. Now coming back to the data, we all rely on the data which Nielsen provides, and I think Nielsen has done a very good job in consolidating the data year after year when they're working on it, and I congratulate the agencies for that. Um, well, we as publishers, we're working for certain products, we're working in the niche. For certain products, we're working all India. For certain products, we're working for a board. For certain products, we're working just for government. Depending, with certain products, we're working just for some school institutions because that they are a group of institutions and they have sizable number of students and they want their content to look in a certain way. So every publisher has their own data. And publishers, I'm talking about existing publishers. And that becomes the base of creating further content, whether digital uh, or physical. So that is the inherent data, the intelligence which we gather through each soldier on the ground. We gather through each training which is done with teachers. We gather through speaking to the principals and teachers. We gather through the different authors who are writing for for students. So that data becomes, and Nielsen, of course, and such reports, that data comes to our rescue when we are developing newer products. But if I talk about the data which is purely in terms of how children are behaving, what kind of products they want, for the newer publishers, it becomes a very, very imperative tool, a very important tool. It'll help them to understand the basic so that they don't go really wrong in understanding and they develop certain products which are not accepted in the market. You'll see certain publishers I don't want to name. They'll come into the market thinking that you just give them this bed, you can just give them this, or you can just give them anything, or you can just give them anything at any price. That doesn't happen. India is very diverse. If you talk about certain states, they're cost sensitive, certain states, they're not cost sensitive. So some are more cosmopolitan, some are not. Some they just want basic, they want 4-color books. Some they are looking at just the price points and they just want knowledge. So in which area they're working on, which region they're working on, what kind of schools they're working on. So that data, if it is provided, it'll help the publishers not to go grossly wrong. I've seen some companies really not seeing a very long term of businesses in this field because India is definitely a very cost sensitive market. And what kind of prices can be absorbed? There's a certain level. So those things can be addressed. Whether what is the learning gap now after COVID, if that kind of study is done. So that will really help the publishers existing also, and also the publishers who are going to enter into this field. So data is imperative. Data is imperative of each student. There, with technology, we are mapping right from kindergarten till class 12 how they have performed in different subjects. What is their competency level? What is their emotional quotient? How they have performed mentally? How they have performed academically? So I think data is one thing which we all know as evolved business people, publishers, and agencies, that becomes the basis of making correct products and making all the corrections which we need in the entire ecosystem.
Thank you. I come to Andre because Monica talked about the data. How you see the data has been utilized by the international publishing companies? You have the experience of UK, you have the experience of Brazil, Spain, and many more markets. How it has been utilized and what kind of decision they use using the data internationally?
Okay, I think all of your panelists are doing this because everybody else's answers are so interesting that we all want to add to it. But I'll answer that question first, as I should. It is about data, but I think they use it in all parts of their business, and I'd say the 2 or 3 main types of data that we see, I think, publishers using, and I think really Monica's absolutely right that they could really do more with information about the learner and about the classroom. Obviously, they use our sales data or their own sales data in order to manage their supply chain. I think increasingly people are also moving their data usage earlier in like the production cycle to think about what are they producing, not just sort of producing something and then managing it. And I think that's very important. Increasingly also, there is more consumer research, whether it is quantitative, so just measuring the numbers, or actually sort of qualitative. And really here, I think, looking at what learners or students actually want. There was talk about agency here. It is very easy for us as adults and experts in our fields to be very prescriptive. And I think more and more publishers and educators are realizing they have to ask children. And obviously in a controlled research environment, but I think there is more of that internationally as well. And adding into that, I want to talk about agency, and this is like the use of data to increase reading and book buying and learning. So in the UK, there's a scheme called National Book Tokens, and every country celebrates World Book Day, but something the UK Booksellers Association and Publishers Association does in conjunction, and they measure it with data. So they issue these £1 book tokens, either digitally or it used to be a sort of coin, and then bookshops accept them, and then publishers publish specific £1 books, and then a child has the agency to go and buy from this range of books for £1. We then measure the sales, and the publishers measure the output, and the booksellers, so everybody can measure the cost of the campaign and the effectiveness of the campaign. And it's using data to measure how many children are being reached, but the real aim of that is to sort of drive readership and also making people comfortable with going to a bookshop. You were talking about first-generation readers. Even in advanced economies, there are still large parts of the country where the adults are not comfortable to go into a bookshop. Whereas if a child has a £1 token they have to spend, and they can choose what they're going to spend it on, and you can measure where these have been spent, that information becomes hugely valuable to the publishers and also to the Booksellers Association. So I think it's not only about having the data, it is then linking the data into a scheme or into a program, and I think that's where data becomes most powerful. And it's been said repeatedly, the agency of the children. As a parent, we often forget this because we spend most of our lives as parents sort of preventing our children's agency because they do really silly things. But in educational content, it's hugely important, and I think sort of making sure that children are reading for leisure, not only reading for education, becomes hypercritical sort of to education, because as we all know, if you're interested in something, you are much more likely to spend time on it. So I think globally there is more focus on understanding the real value of reading for leisure in children. And the last thing that I want to say there, we've talked about hybrid working and hybrid classrooms. The hybrid working has also allowed for changes in how parenting happens, simply because fathers are home more often, and we're talking about the role of parents. And I would say one of the things that has been repeatedly seen in research, and I've experienced myself, fathers reading to their children regularly is a hugely powerful thing, I think. And the hybrid working environment and hybrid commuting patterns has enabled us sort of globally to have more of that. And there are few net positives out of the coronavirus crisis, but I would say that is a very strong net positive outcome.
Thank you, and I've been told that I'm running out of time, so I just want to go to my panelists for their last comments. So I'll start with Himanshu, and I think Himanshu, I'm sorry I've not covered the lack of the data availability in your section, but if you want to make a comment to data availability, important the data in your remarks.
So I think I completely agree. Data drives the strategies for future. Data in our spaces today, what children are reading, how are they reading, what genres are they reading, what levels are they reading, what difficulties are they facing. So we get to understand that, and that's how you produce, you understand the gaps in the children's literature or the publishing space. I mean, when we inquire, we say the children are saying, oh, you don't have any horror stories, but I would like to read horror. So, that becomes a gap area. You don't have much of fantasy which is being produced in India. So there are spaces, and like I spoke about the agency, I think we have to stop the top-down approach and take a bottom-up approach. So listen to children what they want to read. And like Andre said, I think I would like to say 3 things that we can build a better future for our children and creating them lifelong learners is that creating, I would say, uh, a joyful reading spaces for them, giving them and creating more as publishers, institutions, agencies, communities around reading. And the third thing is promoting them reading in their own languages, which is what we tend to, imply. And there is, I always call English as a transactional language, and not really as a a mainstream language. So I think these are some of the things that we have to be doing, and data is important. And unfortunately, I and Vikrant have worked for last many years trying to convince a lot of agencies to be investing in creating a good children's literature data, which is not available because the Nielsen book data and the previous reports, while attempts have been made, but there is no solid deep dive data which is available in the children's literature space. I think I'll rest it here.
Avinash, yourself?
As I said, that the data drives the direction, data drives the strategy. Data decides that how the books are going to be revised. Data decides that which are the new books which are going to come. Data decides that what is the amount of money we would spend on each book in order to promote. So data is the lifeline of the business. It all depends upon us. Data gives us कि बच्चे को क्या चाहिए, rather than coming up with products जो हमें लगता है कि हम कर सकते हैं. We have to come up with products जो market को चाहिए. Many times we end up producing products which we think that our company can do. Regarding the offline online thing, I feel that the market will settle down. The market will decide on its own and will work out an optimum solution. A knife can be used in many ways. A doctor will use a knife in a different way. A thief will use a knife in a different way, and probably a chef will use a knife in a different way. That's the case of technology. Technology is a double-edged sword, and that's it.
Yeah. Monica, yourself?
As I said, coming from a publisher K-12 background, that the government has done their bit of laying down where do we have to reach. For the effective rollout plan, we need data. That data will help us how many hands we need for which facet of that policy. So ultimately, everything boils down to data, and we create a new data where we have reached. So at each level, not only at the starting level, we also need to understand the effectiveness of the job which publishers have done, government has done, teachers have done, educators have done, students have done, parents have done. How effective were they? Whether we're in the right direction or not. So data importance, the importance of data it will remain in the entire life cycle, not only in the beginning. So this is what I say, that we should all work on data, individual data, and plus Nielsen helping us out, I think is really great. Thank you very much. That's it.
Andre, yourself? I think I'll just say, from global to local, what is your last statements would be for this session?
From global to local, I would say the overall problems are the same, and I think the cooperation in between publishers, educators, governments, writers, data agencies, retailers is hypercritical, because the goal is so large, or the problem is so large, but that also means the opportunity is so large, and the cooperation is really key as to how you get data, and it is finding a way to move away from only seeing it as a zero-sum, sort of competitive global environment, into seeing it as a cooperative environment. Because if it's a cooperative environment, whether it be between associations, agencies, or businesses, that's where you have more data, you have more information, you have more understanding, you have more examples, and everybody benefits. So that would be my biggest comment. And yeah, my observation would be the huge opportunity here, the incredible focus and boldness of sort of effort, but then again, linking that to the rest of the world so that everybody net gains.
With that, I think thanks a lot, everyone, for hearing us out. And thank you, all my panelists.
I'd like to showcase my intense gratitude towards the panel and thank you so much for being here. It was such an insightful session. You made us understand the importance of data plays in children book publication and school. Thank you so much for that. I would now like to invite Mr. Ramesh K. Mittal, President of the Federation of Indian Publishers, to the stage to felicitate. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Kapil Gupta, Festival Director, PVLF, and co-founder Frontis Media on the stage, please.